All right, everyone, we're here on the Game Time Decision podcast. Spin, Mark, we're lucky to be joined by Phil Perry of Comcast Sportsnet, Twitter, at Phil A. Perry. Thanks for joining us. Just a little postseason Pats talk. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, a lot of Pats. I mean, it's crazy, guys. It's what's strange is 6 consecutive AFC title game. It feels like not a whole lot of buzz just yet. I mean, have people kind of fallen asleep on this? Is it just too much of a normality at this point? I don't know. I think it'll start to build as we get closer and closer to the game.
Yeah, I agree. So, my first question, I know a lot of Patriots fans and the media and a lot of people are kind of freaking out because the Patriots did not look very good against the Texans, even though they won by 18 points. But the biggest thing that I take away was the fact that the defense played well and the offense was more of the problem. And the Texans have a better defense than any team left, in my opinion. Do you think the Pats have the best defense left in the playoffs amongst the 4 teams?
It's a great question. I think you would have to put them there just because of the consistency that they've shown throughout the course of the year. We know they were the number one team, number one defense in the league when it comes to points allowed. The Texans were actually number one in yards allowed. So you get them out of the mix. I would say the Steelers' defense has gotten a lot better since the beginning of the year. There's actually a few different pieces that they're going to be able to throw at the Patriots that either weren't at full strength or weren't on the field at all when they met back in Week 7. Bud Dupree's a really talented second-year pass rusher. He was unblockable at times in Kansas City. He's on the field now. He didn't play in Week 7. James Harrison's playing more, even though he's 75 years old and somehow as strong as ever. They have Ryan Shazier at linebacker. He did play in Week 7, but was working his way back from an injury. It was his first game back from an abdominal injury, so he wasn't really at full health. All those guys are really firing on all cylinders now, and it's sort of taken this defense to another level. They have a young secondary, too, that has gotten better week after week. So it's going to be a different unit than the one they saw in Pittsburgh a couple months ago.
Yeah, so of that defensive squad, which player do you think has the biggest impact?
Man, in terms of the Steelers, I think you have to look at Shazier first because he's so athletic and he's right in the middle of that defense. I think he's going to have an impact both in the run and in the pass. 4 consecutive games with interceptions, and very few linebackers in the history of the league have ever done that. So he's a really talented guy, somebody you have to watch out for. And then up front, I mentioned Dupree and I mentioned Harrison. Those are typically the edge guys. I'm wondering to see if maybe they use those players right over the center, right on David Andrews. The Texans did it with Whitney Merciless and Jadeveon Clowney. They used those guys inside, and they let them win those one-on-one matchups with some slower-footed, obviously 300-pound interior offensive linemen. So I wonder if they'll loop those ends to the inside and try to get to Tom Brady that way.
So just to kind of go back to the Patriots defense a bit, a common thing really in the entire Belichick era is that he tries to take away a team's number one and, sometimes even the number 2 option as well. So with 2 dynamic playmakers like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, which one do you think Bill and the defense is going to try to take away more than the other one?
Well, you can't let either go off if you want to have any chance of winning. So you got to try to defend both. But I think if you're asking me, who's the priority, I would say it's Bell, and it's that running game because, it's too easy. It's too easy for any offense if you let them run the ball at will. Bell, in my opinion, is the best back in the league. I'm interested to see what happens with him. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. But he has a very unique style. I was talking to Landon Roberts in the Patriots locker room about that style today. He's just so patient. He waits and waits and waits for these holes to open up, and it makes it difficult for whether you're a defensive lineman or a linebacker, and you're trying to take up all these potential gaps that Bell could run through. You're all having to take up really 2 gaps for every defensive lineman and every linebacker just to make sure that he doesn't find the one that you let free, and that's when he explodes for 27, 28, 30-yard gains. So it's going to fall on really this Patriots front 7, I think, to stop Bell first. And then you can still have 2 sets of eyes on Antonio Brown at all time, whether it's Malcolm Butler or Logan Ryan, manning him up at the corner spots with Devin McCourty or Deron Harmon over the top. I can guarantee you that they're going to be paying a lot of attention to both of those guys. but I think you have to stack up against the run in the Steelers offense.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at that Kansas City game from the other night, and I think Antonio Brown just kind of hid a bit in the second half, and the Steelers as a whole, I don't think they didn't get a single touchdown, so that's kind of incredible. They scored 18 points, didn't get a touchdown. Joe, do you got anything else?
Well, one thing that I had to say is a lot of people have been talking about Ben Roethlisberger and his stats on the road. Just to highlight that, over the past 3 years, including the playoffs, 24 touchdowns to 23 picks, and the Steelers are 15-10 on the road compared to 17-5 at home. His passer rating is 15 points higher at home. So do you have any doubt that Ben Roethlisberger might not show up and might not be able to match Brady at Foxborough?
Listen, that's what the trends will tell you. I mean, this year especially, he has been abysmal on the road. And, when you think of what offenses have to deal with when they're away from home, the number one factor usually is noise. We know the Steelers are used to playing in bad weather, so it's not like they're a warm weather team and they're going up north to play against these teams in the snow or in the cold and they're not used to it. That's not it. I'm wondering if, not only their road numbers have been bad, but it's their road numbers in the red zone have been incredibly bad. And we saw it this past weekend against the Chiefs. Ben Roethlisberger had a quarterback rating of 14.5, guys, from the 25-yard line and in. That is atrocious. That is not Matt Moore level. That is less than Brock Osweiler level. It's incredible that they were still able to win that game with him putting up those kinds of numbers. And I wonder if it's because of the noise.
Mike.
I'm just a little curious. So there was obviously a lot of talk coming into the playoffs. Who's the biggest threat to New England? And, the two common teams were obviously Pittsburgh and Kansas City. So which team did you fear the most coming into the playoffs?
For me, are you talking both AFC and NFC?
Let's just say AFC first.
AFC, I thought, honestly, that their biggest competition would be the Steelers because of that offense and because, listen, we've been talking about it all year. Has the Patriots' defense been tested? Are they as good as their numbers say they are? And I think this really will be their first legitimate test in quite some time. I mean, I know the Ravens were a pretty good team when they were coming in here. They were looking at a potential playoff spot. The Broncos' defense is great, but their offense isn't much to write home about, even though they have two of the better receivers in the league. This is a great quarterback, usually, a great receiver, maybe the best in the league, and the best running back in the league. And on top of it, they have an offensive line that's playing like the best offensive line in the league right now. So you look at all those factors, this is by far and away, in my opinion, the best offense they're going to face. It's a team that can keep pace with Brady and this Patriots offense when they're even at their best. And so that, to me, is the reason why this team is probably the best test they could have faced. And it just so happens they're the ones who made it to the end, and they're going to be fighting for a spot in the Super Bowl. When you talk about both conferences, I actually thought the Giants would have been a really tough matchup for them. So when they lost in the first round to the Packers, they were on the road, and so they were underdogs. But I thought if there was any way that they made it back to the Super Bowl, it would have been a fascinating matchup because their defense was so good. It's just they got lit up by Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
That was actually my Super Bowl pick, Pats and Giants, and I had the Giants topping the Pats. I have a dilemma.
Hot take. I like it. I like it.
I have a lot of hot takes. That's maybe a little too hot sometimes.
Some are hot, some are dumb.
But I have a little dilemma right now because one of my rules is I never pick the team that I want to win. But I think that the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, that Brady has always lit up them. When Dick LeBeau was their defensive coordinator, he's not there anymore. But there's just something about the Steelers that I just can't see them coming in to Foxborough. I don't give them a chance as much as I am a pessimist. I just don't see it. Do you think that there's a way that they can stop Brady and they can pull this out?
I do. I do think there's a chance. This is not the Houston Texans of a week ago. That was a surefire, and it ended up even playing out that way. Patriots didn't play their best. They were still able to win. Patriots are going to have to play really, really well to win this game, or the Steelers are going to have to puke on their shoes. I know what the road numbers have been for Ben Roethlisberger, and that's the trend. I just feel like the guy's been in so many big games. The offense is so good. They had their down week last week. Maybe they're able to figure some things out. Maybe they're looking at this Patriots defense and they're looking at chops and they're saying, look at the quarterbacks these guys have had to face since they lost to Russell Wilson at home. coming off a bye earlier this season. They probably scoffed at that. I mean, especially if you look at what the Seahawks offense looked like the rest of that year. It's incredible that they were able to come to New England and do what they did. So I think the Steelers could be licking their chops. Listen, this is going to have to be a game where everybody plays their best. They're going to have to play complementary football. We always hear that from Bill Belichick. They're going to have to take care of the football much better than they did against the Texans because, again, the offense can keep pace with you, and the defense is pretty good. It's not the defense it was last year. It's not even the defense it was earlier this year. They're healthy. They've got several playmakers that occupy all three levels of their defense, and I could very easily – I'm not picking this. I do think the Patriots will win, but I think the Steelers could very easily pull this one out.
Another thing, Michael Floyd against the Texans cost Brady an interception and almost cost him another one. It looks like he was kind of cutting up field before he fully secured the ball and made catches. Do you think, A, that's lost Brady's trust, and is there a chance that he might not even play in the AFC Championship game?
Well, it didn't help when it comes to Brady's trust. I'll tell you that. It certainly didn't help. I don't know if Brady can afford to freeze this guy out. You look at the health of that receiving core right now. Chris Hogan's dealing with a thigh injury. We just talked to him. He says he's feeling good. He's hoping to practice. So that may not be an issue going into this weekend. But Malcolm Mitchell's still dealing with a knee injury. Danny Amendola's coming off an ankle injury. It felt like his reps were reduced in that game against the Texans. And so, they can't afford to not have this guy contribute. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. He's going to be a physical mismatch on the majority of the cornerbacks that they line him up against. I think they can still run him on some pretty simple routes, whether they're goes down the sidelines or these slants that they tried to run to him the other night. Those shouldn't be routes that you mess up, though, and that's on Michael Floyd. I know he hasn't been around very long. I know he's maybe not sure how Brady wants him to run those routes, as though he might if they had spent an entire training camp and off-season together. But those are the kinds of plays that you have to be able to make to earn Tom Brady's trust. I just don't think Brady can afford to go away from him. There may be some situations where they're really leaning on this guy, whether it's this weekend against the Steelers or if they win in a couple weeks in Houston.
Yeah, maybe sometimes you look out there and maybe Floyd just didn't expect to get the ball thrown to him on some of those plays. Like he's like, well, I'm new here. Why should he throw it to me? He doesn't throw it to me often. Maybe he's just not going to toss it to me.
If that's the case, I want him sitting.
Can't be an excuse. You got to be ready.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
As soon as you whip your head around, and if that's the case, then, and the coaching staff feels that way, then, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't put him in uniform, because if he's that out to lunch, then it's not worth having him out there.
Well, I just heard my guy's name, Malcolm Mitchell, mentioned a couple minutes ago now. Is there word on if he's supposed to be playing this weekend or not? I'm actually curious.
We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see how much he practices. He has been practicing in recent weeks, so this thing's been trending in the right direction. I think, guys, what they've been doing with him is in some ways they obviously would like him for the stretch run here, but I think you have to think long term when it comes to this player too. He's a guy who's had a history of knee injuries, tore his ACL in college. He, that's the reason why he fell to the fourth round. He's a first-round talent who had an injury history, and he scared a lot of teams off, whether it was his knee or anything else. And we know he dealt with an elbow thing earlier this year, too. It's sort of a fluky play, but he's a player who had a reputation of being hurt a lot. And so I think if they can at all get him any extra rest, especially with the depth they have at receiver right now, that's probably what they're trying to do. And he's a player, again, you want to win a Super Bowl, you want to play as well as you can right now, you want to have your best players out there, but he's a guy who's a rookie, he's in his first year, a 4-year deal. You want to make sure that he's good for the rest of this contract. He's part of your future plan. And so if there's anything at all hindering him, I don't think they want to risk it with this player specifically.
Yeah, and this might be a little premature, but looking ahead, if the Patriots do win on Sunday against the Steelers, do you think I think this is my opinion that the Falcons are absolute frauds and they're gonna get handled easily by Aaron Rodgers. So do you think that it's going to be Pat's Packers Super Bowl, and do you think the Patriots can win against either team?
Yeah, I do think that the Packers will win, because there's no way you can get me to bet against Aaron Rodgers right now. The way he's playing, the guy's an absolute magician. He's doing things at the position that I don't think anybody's ever done. His ability to move to throw on the move, to throw with touch, to throw from the pocket, to manipulate defenses. I mean, one of those touchdown passes to Richard Rodgers, who's a local guy here from Massachusetts, pride of St. John's Prep in Shrewsbury. He somehow on the road where the crowd is supposed to be loud and you're supposed to be having to go off a silent snap count. He got the Cowboys defense to jump off sides, then had a free play and lofted up a perfect ball to his tight end for a touchdown. I mean, he is on a snap-to-snap basis doing things that are just ridiculous and are really hard to defend. He's, in my opinion, the best quarterback on the planet right now. And I do think they'll win in Atlanta. If the Patriots get there, I'm interested to see if they have enough defensively to slow him down. What they'll try to do, I'm sure, is keep him in the pocket. They love doing that with mobile quarterbacks. They hate it when those guys can get outside and extend plays and turn the thing into a schoolyard football game where you have receivers running all over the place for 4 and 5 seconds at a time, and it makes it impossible for your DBs to cover them. That would be the most difficult thing is against another good offensive line, which Green Bay has, to be able to limit Rodgers, keep him in the pocket, and lock onto their receivers for as long as they're going to have to. That would be the biggest challenge. But I do think, if you ask me, do they have a chance of beating either of those teams? Of course. You know, whether it's Green Bay or Atlanta, they have enough to win. This is as good a Final Four and as closely matched, I think, a Final Four as we've had in some time. I could see any of these 4 teams win the whole thing.
Well, what gives me some hope for the Patriots is the fact that every team left is offensive-minded. And I think you have to go back to probably 2006 against the Colts in the AFC Championship game to see the last time the Patriots lost to a team that had a worse defense than they did. Because all the time you go back all the years, even when the Patriots' defense was good, they were beaten by teams with better defenses like Denver, Baltimore, the Jets that one year in the divisional round. So do you think that bodes really well for the Patriots, considering that they haven't in 10 years lost to a team with a worse defense?
Sure. I mean, it's a huge part of it. Defense wins championships. We know that. But again, guys, I think the Steelers' defense is pretty good. This is a Kansas City Chiefs team, and I know it's Alex Smith, the quarterback, and I don't believe in him. You guys probably don't believe in him. I don't think Kansas City even believes in him. However, they put up over 30 points against the Denver Broncos. They beat the Broncos twice. You know, they had some pretty good offensive performances, and they got some help from their special teams. But they're a solid offensive unit. No spectacular players really at any phase, but just good all the way around. And for the Steelers to hold them on the road, to the point total that they did, where they didn't even have to score a touchdown and they still won the game, it's pretty impressive. So, I think you can look at the season statistics when it comes to the Steelers defense and the Patriots defense, but it's how are you playing right now? I think the Patriots defense is playing great, and I still give them the edge in that category, but don't discount this Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
So, I don't know exactly when, but I was doing one of my many daily scrolls through Twitter today, and I happened to see a tweet regarding Mike Golick and Ryan Clark. So I guess they were on the radio today talking about the playoffs, the remaining 4 teams, and they both agreed that the Patriots actually had the worst offense left out of the 4 remaining teams. And obviously, when I first heard this, I was outraged. I was like, how can they say that? But when you really think about it, you can make the case for that being true. Which is very strange to say, but just looking around at the rest of these teams, they're all very similar in terms of offense. Just wanted to kind of put that out there. Not really a question, but
Yeah, no, hey, anytime you can get a little nugget from Ryan Clark and Mike Golick, I think you got to do it. I mean, Ryan Clark knows what it's like to lose to the Patriots, and so he's got insight that we just don't have. So I can appreciate that for sure.
Just a couple more questions before we let you go. So against the Texans, Dion Lewis had an all-time performance, touchdown running, catching, receiving, and in special teams, but he also put the ball on the ground twice. Do you think that Belichick will give him the Stephen Ridley treatment where he just puts him on a tight leash, or do you think he just says, go out there because we need his dynamic playmaking ability? And it's also been known that the Patriots are now 15-0 when Dion Lewis is active. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, unless he's fumbling it, on his first couple of touches and has another couple, in the first quarter, they're going to continue to lean on this guy. He's a guy who, in 4 seasons, including this one, he obviously missed a couple seasons due to injury, but you want to go all the way back to his time with the Eagles. And in 4 seasons of play, he had 4 fumbles. And so I think you have to take what happened the other night as a little bit of an anomaly. He is their most dynamic guy with the football in his hands. He can take – what makes him so special is he can take a play that's supposed to be or should have been a -1 or -2 yard gain because somebody somehow knifed into the backfield. He can make that guy miss and turn it into maybe a 3 or 4 yard gain. And that doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot. But when you're in a spot like down by the goal line, you want to look at that one goal line carry that LeGarrette Blount had against the Texans. What happened? David Andrews ends up getting blown up by DJ Reader. The play is essentially over. He has to try to bounce it outside, and he has no chance. Somebody like Dion Lewis, who ended up getting the goal line carry a little bit later in the game, can make that guy miss in the backfield and then still get up in there and find the goal line and score. So that's where his value is. It's not necessarily the huge explosive plays. But, we know he has that capability too. He can get, whether it's a kickoff return or in the receiving game. But it's the taking the negative plays, which are absolute killers no matter where you are on the field as an offense, and turning it into positive gains.
So,
guys, I'm going to have to. I'm really sorry. I'm getting a call here from my wife who is 9 months pregnant.
Oh.
And so
Wow.
this could be important.
Breaking
Hey,
news.
that's great. Hey,
So,
congratulations.
thank you
I'm
for
going
coming on.
to let you go.
Best of luck.
Thanks for coming
And,
on.
but hey, no, thanks for having me, guys. It's always fun. We'll talk soon.
That's
all right.
exciting.
All right, thanks.
See ya.
Good luck.
Thanks, man.